the first massive German air raid on Moscow was carried out on the night of July 22, 1941. Following the first raid, there were two others, almost as powerful. Then, the total number of bombers participating in attacks on the city decreased. The peak of the raids on Moscow occurred in November 1941, 45 air alerts in a month. However, the bombings did not inflict significant damage to the city. From July 1941 to January 1942, only 229 out of 7,146 enemy aircraft penetrated to the capital. On September 26, Theodor von Bock signed Order No. 16/2041 for the advance of Army Group Center towards Moscow. Neighboring army groups north and south were to cover the main strikes in the Moscow direction, advancing eastward. The 2nd Air Fleet of Albert Kesselring was tasked with destroying the Soviet aviation in front of the advancing troops and supporting the offensive with all available forces, which is why mass bombings of industrial enterprises were postponed. On the Moscow direction, the German command concentrated 3 field armies, 9th, 4th, 2nd, 3 tank groups, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, and 1 air fleet, 2nd. As of October 1, 1941, the total number of German troops reached 1,800,000 men, about 1,700 tanks, over 14,000 guns and mortars, and 1,390 combat aircraft. The troops of the 3 Soviet fronts, Western, Kalinin, and Bryansk, had about 1,250,000 men, 990 tanks, 7,600 guns and mortars, and 677 aircraft. The strength ratio by personnel was 1 minute and 1.4 seconds, by guns and mortars 1 minute and 1.4 seconds, and by tanks 1 minute and 1.6 seconds. By the end of September 1941, a situation had developed in which the likelihood of a quick capture of Moscow by the enemy's tank and motorized units in the Maloyaroslavets and Mazaisk directions was quite high. The German command firmly held the strategic initiative in their hands. The operational density of the grouping of Soviet troops as a whole was low, especially in artillery, only 12 guns and mortars per kilometer of the front. There was a sharp shortage of ammunition for 76 mm and 152 mm guns, 122 mm howitzers, and 82 mm and 120 mm mortars. It was unrealistic to rely on the effectiveness of fire damage to the enemy in defense. The German assault groups captured the initial positions 1 or 2 days before the start of Operation Typhoon. On September 30, the 2nd Panzer Group of General H. Guderian launched an offensive from the Shaska area, and in the early morning of October 2, the 9th and 4th Field Armies did the same. Combat actions in the Bryansk area, October 1941. The 3rd and 4th Panzer Groups attacked the positions of the Red Army in the southwestern Moscow direction and simultaneously at several sectors of the front. Adolf Hitler, confident in the rapid and inevitable capture of the Soviet capital. The Moscow Strategic Defensive Operation began, lasting 67 days, from September 30 to December 5, 1941. By the end of October 2, units of the 3rd Tank Group under General Gota broke through the front at the junction of the 19th and 30th Soviet armies, while the 4th Tank Group under General Gopner broke through in the defense sector of the 43rd Army south of the Warsaw Highway. All the efforts and attention of the Soviet High Command at that moment were focused on the Oryol direction, and in the Kharkov area, the German 2nd Panzer Group of Guderian advanced 120 kilometers into the defense line of the Bryansk front in 2 days. Army General Georgy Zhukov near Yelnya, 1941. 3 rifle divisions and 2 tank brigades of the 43rd Army of the Reserve Front could not withstand the massed attack of 12 divisions of the 4th Panzer Group. On the same day, the advanced units of Gepner were already striking at the second echelon of the front, 40 kilometers from the front line, which were occupied by the People's Militia divisions. After scattering the troops of the Bryansk and Reserve fronts, the tank and motorized divisions rushed north along the Warsaw Highway. On October 3, the advanced units of Guderian's 2nd Panzer Group captured Oryol and continued their offensive towards Mtsensk and Tula. A gap of 30 to 40 kilometers had formed between the 30th and 19th Armies of the Western Front. The motorized units of the Wehrmacht and SS broke through to Vyazma. By the end of October 4, the divisions of Gott and Gopner were already 60 to 70 kilometers from the city. On October 3 to 4, in the area of the 24th and 43rd Armies of the Reserve Front, units of the 4th German Panzer Group rushed towards the east of Vyazma, into the rear of the Western Front troops.